Hello and welcome to the Arete Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Triggs, and today my guest is Dr Meg Hooper, who's an organisational psychologist, specifically working in the areas of workplace change, culture and collaboration. In this conversation, we explore why purpose alone is not enough, how organisations can create environments where collaboration genuinely happens, and why frontline leaders are often the people who determine whether change succeeds or fails. It's a very insightful conversation about leadership, behaviour, and helping people thrive through change. So sit back and enjoy this wonderful conversation with Meg Hooper. Hello, Dr. Meg Hooper. It's been a while.
Hello, Richard Triggs. It has been a while. It's been literally years.
Do you think, I know that we've spoken, post-COVID, but wow, hasn't the world changed for both of us?
Hasn't it changed for both of us? Quite significantly, I'd say.
Yeah. So last time I met you, you were, doing your thing and with your business and your circus and, being a mum, and we had a great podcast interview. It must be, as you said earlier, before the recording 3 or 4 years ago, but what's happening in your world now?
Well, pretty much all of those things, but I think I've taken it to the next level. So business is going well. Carousel now has an office space that I share with my team and my hairy co-worker, aka Scout, my dog, who
Not me.
No, not you. And Circus is going really well. And we have, for the first time ever, received funding from Arts Queensland to run our operational side of the business. So, we've gone from 8 kids when I started, and this is our 9th year, so big 10th birthday celebration next year. And we now have about 63 kids. And our inaugural Ipswich Circus Festival is on the 10th and 11th of July. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Oh, well,
just so that people hear the good news.
Have to put a link to buy tickets in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's come back to that, later in the conversation.
For sure.
For people who didn't listen to the podcast and aren't familiar with you and your work, tell us about, Carousel and all things that you're doing.
So I am a psychologist. I have a PhD in organisational psychology. So that is my background, and that kind of colours the lens through which I see all my work. My team and I specialise in workplace change, so organisational change, and through a number of different lenses. Typically, people engage us because the change itself, so it might be a practical change or a technical change or a structural change, there's some sort of cultural change that is aspirational off the back of it. So the change is being used as a catalyst for cultural change. So the change can be a people-related change, or the change could be a technical change. It doesn't really matter. I think people experiencing change need support, and that's what we do. We work on, medium to large projects mostly, sometimes small projects as well, and support organisations through change.
Right. And so to give people a sense of what that looks like, give me 1 or 2 examples of some more recent clients that you've worked with and what the mandate was.
Okay, so a client that we're working with at the moment, they are a not-for-profit organisation, quite large, and and they're in the NDIS sector. So there's a lot of change happening in that sector at the moment, and we were asked to support them to develop a new set of values and a new cultural blueprint or a new cultural framework for them to be able to not just survive but thrive in the new world. So what that looked like is working with them and some of their clients to understand what those values need to look and sound like, what the behaviours need to look and sound like for them to be successful in the future and for them to achieve strategy. And we workshopped with, I'd say, about 20 people over a couple of days, and then we refined the messaging. And so we've established a set of values for them. We've established a cultural framework for them, and now we're in the middle of the hard work, which is implementing all of that. So the implementation plan is coming together. The change management plan is coming together. So how do you, it's all very well to say we want people to behave more collaboratively, for example, but what does that actually look like, and how do we make that happen for an organisation that has, hundreds of employees across the nation, and you want everyone to behave in a consistent way so that there's a consistent experience for clients along the way.
Two questions about that.
Mm.
One is, how do you scope it out, and how do you set some benchmarks in terms of tracking progress to outcome? And then the second one is kind of a bit aside, but my experience, because I've recruited C-suite leaders into not-for-profits hundreds of times in 7 years. It's interesting for people from the outside looking into these not-for-profits. You would think the culture is just beautiful. It's all unicorns and champagne and sparkles, and everybody is full of love, and they've all got tremendous collaboration and cohesion and so on. But often in these not-for-profits, culture is a real issue, isn't it? And I think one of the reasons, in my opinion, for that is that everybody's there because they've got a heart connection to the cause, which means that they can be a bit militant about, I want this because this is the best thing for my stakeholders, and culture can be a real issue, can't it?
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges for organisations that have started out as community organisations and are now quite large, sort of multi-million dollar outfits, is that people join for the purpose that comes with being a part of the organisation. The challenge is that can become an overdone strength, and we then don't invest in other things that we really need to. They're organisations just like any other organisation. They just have this overlay of purpose and mission and meaning that people are attracted to overwhelm all that good stuff that comes with people attracted to purpose and mission and all those sorts of things. So it's not that this organisation was particularly bad at any of those sorts of things, but it did rely heavily on the goodwill and the mission and the people who are coming because they believed in what the organisation does. I think that's still important, but it's not enough. You can't run an organisation with that alone. You still have to, have workflows that are effective. You still have to have goals, strategic goals for the organisation. You still have to have processes and systems, and you still need technology that works. All of those sorts of things don't go away just because you're running a not-for-profit. And I know this myself, running Circus Ipswich as well, is that you can start with all the goodwill in the world, and just because I'm a volunteer, that actually doesn't excuse me from running an organisation that allows people to thrive, not just come and sort of limp along because I'm here for the right reasons. That can become an overdone strength. And it's, at what cost are we asking people to work under those conditions as well? Now, this organisation isn't anywhere near as bad as I'm making it right now, but certainly it had got to the point where purpose and goodwill and mission weren't enough, and they really needed to invest in the other things that people needed to thrive at work.
That term that you used, overused strength.
Overdone strengths. Classic psychology term. Yep.
Right. I've never heard that before, but that's exactly it, isn't it? It's like, your superpower is that you care, but the caring can get in the way of cohesion.
Absolutely. We see that, and not just in not-for-profit organisations, we see that with all sorts of teams, with all sorts of organisations, with all sorts of, even at an individual level. And I guess that's why I love that phrase so much, because it really does speak to the human experience, not just at work, in life generally, but particularly at work, at an individual level, but also within my team, and also at a whole organisation cultural level as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, that's it. And the other part of my question was then, so, you take on a project like that, how do you measure success, and what are the key milestones along the way to succeeding?
It's a really good question, because this space is not easy to measure. many times the measure can be subjective, but thankfully, hundreds of years of psychology has shown that when we measure perceived achievement, or we measure perception, we're often pretty close to the truth. So with any organization really, we scope out our work starting with what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So in this case, we're not just being given, this is the change and we want you to implement it, or we want you to build a change strategy around this. How would we get people from A to B for this change? In this case, we were up at the very front end saying, well, here's the strategy of the organization. This is the challenges. This is the problem we're trying to solve. And we think shifting culture will be a part of the solution. And so we were able to be upfront and help them design what that solution would look like. So obviously those goals, like the goals for the organization, and that is to have, people feeling valued, people feeling like they can actually have a career in this organization, and all the other things that established as part of their goals for this project, those then become sort of our measures. So we then end up with two measures. One is for the project itself, which is process goals. So did we achieve this? Did we achieve these milestones? Did we get this done on time? Did we do it within budget? All of those sort of project related goals. Then there's process goals to say, how many people turned up to that session, that information session where we were sharing ideas about this sort of thing. And then there's outcome goals to say, well, if we're really interested in increasing the levels of engagement of this workforce, because we know that engagement leads to greater levels of contentment with my work, I've got more energy, I've come up with better ideas, then we can measure engagement. And there's very well established measures of engagement now that have quite high validity in picking up that sort of thing. So we measure engagement to say, well, one of the things that we really want to have come out of this is energy, levels of energy. How energetic do people feel about coming to work? That's an outcome goal. Then we want to get a sense of how together people feel, the level of togetherness. So we can measure that. We can ask people questions about how strong is your feeling of belonging with the organization? So that's a measure of togetherness. And there's all these other things that we can do to measure the outcomes, because in this case, the outcomes are people-related outcomes. Ultimately, all of these need to lead to strategy though. And, sometimes you play the long game and it might not be us measuring it over time, but the long game might be that if we establish this culture, then achieving the goals within our strategic goals will be easier because culture will help us get there. One's not really more important than the other. They have to feed off each other, but ultimately, if we work on the culture within the organization, we will make it easier to get to our strategic goals.
Yeah, because I mentioned, for a lot of organizations, it's that balance between culture and, financial success, isn't it? How do we deliver the financial outcomes to our stakeholders in a way that, balances culture so that both are equally important?
Absolutely. I just don't think they're mutually exclusive. I just think that they are connected to each other. And like you say, that your financial success has to be driven by strategy, because there has to be something that you're heading towards in order for the money piece to actually work. You also then need the ways of working. And so I define culture as patterns of behavior. You need the patterns of behavior to be aligned in the direction that's going to achieve your strategic goals. Culture in and of itself isn't just we all feel great about being here. You can have shitty cultures and still achieve your strategic goals. Might not be particularly sustainable because you might then have very high turnover costs or very large psychosocial safety claims from work cover or whatever it is. But culture in and of itself is really just a way to describe the patterns of behavior that bubble up in an organization. So we know that if you've got a strategy X, then culture X is most likely to support you to deliver on that strategy.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so I know that, one of the things you're really focused on now is collaboration. And
yes.
In fact, you have this beautiful TLA, three-letter acronym, CM2, right? So tell us about
Sorry, it just took me a while to figure out what TLA was. No, yes. So we are super proud of this. One of the things that we get asked to come in and support most, I would say, is to build a culture of collaboration. We all know that every organization is typically structured functionally because there's a pretty contemporary way to think about how we manage work in an organization. The challenge with that is that we establish these sort of functional silos, and everyone, you don't have to go too far to find an organization where everyone says, oh, the silos get in the way of doing good work. So I think I'm in my 20-something year of this career of mine, and I don't think I've heard an organisation once say that they haven't got silos. No, we're silo free around here, and everyone sort of credits silos for being the thing that gets in the way. So we started thinking about this about 5 or 6 years ago. How could you actually tackle that problem directly and start to build cultures of collaboration? Because collaboration being the opposite of silos, where you actually need all of the functions together to do something great. So we started collecting data. We started talking to people about what collaboration looks like. We started specifically in an asset management space because asset management as a discipline is enterprise wide. It needs probably nearly every part of the organization to have a culture of collaboration because they've all got something to say about how assets are managed to support the organization to achieve. But we've since found that it's really useful across all industries and all disciplines. So we established a CM2 to help organizations understand that you can't just rely on individuals who are collaborative in nature and who have a lot of goodwill and great interpersonal skills. You can't rely on that alone to help you build a culture of collaboration. Because I might be super collaborative in my intention, but as soon as I step into an organization where the system is designed against collaboration, then I'm going to stop, as I said, culture as patterns of behaviour. I'm going to stop behaving in a collaborative way pretty soon if everything I come up against is telling me that's not what we do around here. That's not our patterns of behaviour. Mm-hmm. So we designed the CM2, which is a maturity model, hence the M and the 2. So it's the collaboration maturity model to help organisations understand. Yep. What was that? Sorry.
M2 or M squared?
Well, I like to think M squared, but we had a little bit of debate and I think it was like the superscript on the.
How does it present that?
We had debate in the organisation, in the team, about whether people would really understand what the squared meant. So we went with CM2. I lost that debate, but that's the kind of leader I am. I'm collaborative to a fault.
You're a role model for us.
That's right. What we've been able to show though, and we've collected a lot of data along the way, and we released this about 2 years ago. So we have, it's a diagnostic tool as well as a strategy development tool. So we use the same data to both understand where we're at from a collaborative point of view and also understand where we want to go.
Right.
The model itself has 2 layers. So we acknowledge that individuals have a part to play. That sits on the outside. The challenge for organisations is that you rarely get to control how individuals behave. The only thing you've got control of as an organisation is really the environment you create, and that's the inside layer. And then the third part of it all is contributing to a culture of collaboration where collaborative practices bubble up to the top. So where we do most of our work, the strategy development itself is not at an individual layer. We're not asking people to be more collaborative as individuals or to do better at collaboration. Where we typically work is at that center layer, which is collaboration is reinforced by the environment and the system. What are the things we need to put in place? And we can't do it all at once because, you pull all the levers at once, you jam the machine. So we have to prioritize where our energy is going. So that's the basis of the model.
Okay, so I would imagine that most business owners or CEOs would go, It's all about collaboration. It's all about building teams that collaborate and, unite to succeed. And so where do they get it wrong?
I think in part they're relying on individuals to bring their collaborative selves and aren't thinking about the system that that those people walk into. I think they also underestimate the role that that environment plays.
Okay.
So I think and I guess a classic is if you want people to collaborate, but the only way you reward people is for their individual effort or for their individual success, then if that's what motivates me, then why would I collaborate? I think the other thing that organizations don't tend to understand particularly well is how strong and powerful social identity is. So that group identity that comes from belonging to a function and having a leader up the top who only looks down and doesn't look out. And so I think that leadership layer and behavior of leaders within that, when they are part of the environment that people walk into, then I think that has a really big part to play as well. I reward my leaders for having their functions all sorted, whereas it would be great to shift towards a balance of, yeah, I need you to manage your function, but I also need you to see your peers as a team as well, and to start to make decisions collectively and to really role model what it looks like to collaborate, not just consult on things, not just ask people's opinion, but actually genuinely collaborate where different levels of expertise or different types of expertise can contribute to the solution or the problem solving process that we're following. So I think that's typically what I see most commonly is that, and probably the other thing that I see is thinking that cross-functional teams or cross-functional projects are not worth the effort because it does require investment. If you want a culture of collaboration, and there's really good financial reasons if we want, or innovation reasons if we want to go that way, that organizations should collaborate. Well, if you want to go that way, then you have to accept that it's an investment. It's not just going to be a once off and it's all going to work well. It takes time and effort and persistence to establish that.
Yeah. Just a comment before we go to my next
Sure.
question. Leadership's bloody hard, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's like, who would do it? No.
Just do your job and collaborate. To feel that there needs to be this huge investment in structure and systems and culture and so on to encourage that. I imagine there's a lot of leaders who go, it's just too hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, maybe they are, but they should come and talk to me, obviously, because it doesn't have to all happen all at once. That's why it's a maturity model.
Absolutely. So talk to me about now let me just make sure I've got the word correct, psychosocial risk. That's not a term that I've heard before.
So in Australia, for quite a few years now, organisations have been obligated to manage psychosocial hazards in the workplace. Those are hazards that are not necessarily physical hazards, although there is a little relationship between the two. But just like we keep people physically safe at work, organisations now have an obligation to keep people psychologically healthy at work. And that's been defined as managing psychosocial hazards, just the same way that we manage physical hazards. The challenge with psychosocial hazards, though, is that whether they create harm or not is not a straightforward thing. So whereas, if I'm on an elevated work platform and I fall off the platform, then there's a good chance that I will break a bone, or hurt myself in some way. There's a pretty linear kind of relationship between falling off and hurting myself.
Sure.
Psychosocial hazards don't quite work that way because individuals respond to those hazards in different kind of ways as well. So organisations, though, are obliged to create environments where they have done everything they can to reduce those psychosocial hazards. What do I mean by psychosocial hazards? They're things like incivility, so people being rude to each other at work, They're things like poor change management, where we haven't really managed the change and the impact it has on people, particularly people who don't have authority or power in an organisation. They're things like really bad supervisor relationships. So if I've got a leader relationship that is really destructive, it's not having control over my work in any way, all of those sorts of things. And in Queensland, we have a list that the WorkSafe Queensland publishes that are the top ones. Change management, poor change management being one of the top ones as well. So in 2022, those guidelines got a lot more attention. So they've always been there, like the obligation to manage it has always been there. But in 2022, the Office of Industrial Relations and WorkSafe Queensland really, or Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, I should say, really invested in making those known. And so now we're starting to see, and it's not just Queensland, it's across the country. We're now seeing organisations being fined for not mitigating the risks of psychosocial hazards, and particularly restructures that don't have any change management, or leader relationships where the relationship has been allowed to become so toxic, and bullying, harassment is a really big one as well. So that's what psychosocial hazards are, and that's why they're really important for organisations to know and think about now, is that not only are they good for business to worry about them and to address them, but now there's compliance and legislative reasons to do so as well.
I mean, again, as a business owner myself, and having worked in corporate leadership roles in my past, I mean, that's all pretty common sense, isn't it? You want to have, managers, supervisors, leaders in your team that lead with authority, but with common sense and compassion. So why has this become such a big deal?
Well, I think you might be one of the exceptions, Richard. I don't know. I think there's a reason the number of work cover claims for psychological injury across the country, and it's work cover in Queensland, but across the country has increased. Psychosocial claims are the most expensive because treatment is expensive, and they take the longest to recover from. And they've increased over the last, 5-10 years or so. So there's a real, the concept of work being a positive part of our lives is really important here. You have to believe that work is a fundamental part of most adult lives, and also should be a positive one. So if you believe that, then you kind of believe that, any harm that's happening for people is important. And I think as well, there's sort of an understanding now. Yes, common sense is one thing, but common sense hasn't always been common sense. Like the things we know now that are harmful, we might not have thought that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, once upon a time, asbestos was thought of as safe to work with. So,
Sure. Okay. To play devil's advocate to this.
Please do.
I mean, you go, okay, I didn't know asbestos was harmful. I get that. But, being an arsehole, right? I mean, I don't think that is a newfound understanding. I think we all understand we need to treat people respectfully. We need to appreciate the fact that they're giving up their time to work for us. So I don't really see the comparison there, but by the same token, I imagine there are a lot of CEOs or business owners who might be listening to this and go, oh yeah, but I get really frustrated. I want people to do their best and so on. It is a fine balance. I understand that. One of the things, obviously, bringing about all of this change, whether it's moving into a collaborative model or moving into a model of respect and support and so on, many leaders, I imagine, must be thrust into this, kind of accidentally, right?
Yeah.
You like how I did that, Meg?
I love how you did that. Yes. Yeah. Well done, you.
Right? So it's like, I'm suddenly thrust into the situation, I was never trained to do this. I went to university, I got an engineering degree, or I got I went to a trade, I became an electrician. Now I'm being pushed into this leadership role, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, I have to learn all these new skills, and I have to have this greater awareness and so on. How do you support people in that regard?
That's a very good question, Richard. So we have. So I refer to people that, as you say, I refer to people as the accidental change manager. And the reason why I call them that is because often it's the people who have no training in change management, have no background in change management, and they're the ones that are on the front line. It's their teams that they have to lead their team through change. They're the ones that make it work or not. Teams rarely get through change without a leader who can help them navigate the change. And I'm not talking leader as in CEO, I'm not talking COO, I'm not even talking regional director, whatever level you want to go to. The person who leads them on a daily basis, that's the person that they need to support them, because that's the person that they're closest to. That's the person that understands what they do every day. That's the person who sees them every day and knows about their lives, and usually anyway. So those people are the least likely to have done any training in change management. So off the back of our change programs, and the reason why I call it accidental change manager is because most of the things that you're talking about being thrust into something is typically because the organization is going through change. So I need to introduce a psychosocial hazard policy or a risk mitigation policy. That's a change for the organization. I need to implement it. That's a change for the organization. I need to change rosters so that we're now working 24/7. That's a change for the organization. And it's the frontline leaders that typically are carrying the leadership of that change when it comes to rubber hits the road on the coalface. So the accidental change manager is a learning program that we had started to develop. Well, we developed off the back of our change program. So when we're engaged to support an organization through change, we would also run, as part of that, the accidental change manager, which is a learning program for frontline leaders to say, this is the change that's coming and these are the sorts of skills you might like to learn about. And here's how we would approach the first 3 months. What we've done, though, is we've taken that and we've created a standalone program, because we know that organizations don't necessarily want a change consultant to come in and support them with the change, but they've still got these leaders who have no training and have no background in change, who have a bunch of people in their team who need help to navigate the change. So we've created a standalone program called the Accidental Change Manager, and it's a learning program. It's half fixed and half bespoke. So we work with organizations to determine what topics need to be discussed and what the delivery method will be. There's a lot of interactive work. There's a lot of opportunity to do activities and to practice the skills. And yes, so that's what we've done in response to this idea that it's the frontline leaders who are typically the ones left holding the bag, and we need to support them if we're going to see success in change processes.
Fantastic. So what you're really saying is that you can get involved at an organisational level. How do we, go through substantive cultural change, implementation of whatever is prescribed as being best practice. And then also, how do we engage at an individual level with that frontline manager, that accidental change manager, to support them to really, to use my word, arete, the fulfillment of one's full potential, right? You say, well, how do we help this person to achieve their full potential as a leader?
Absolutely. Without having to send them on an MBA, because we believe that that's what they need.
I've got an MBA. And, when I did my MBA, I realised, and then coming into the recruitment industry, MBAs don't teach you about leadership. They don't teach you about how to manage and support and guide and encourage and empower people. That's not what they do. So I'm not saying they don't have their place. I'm very, very pleased. I did my executive MBA at QUT and it was wonderful. But, it's a different skill set, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, and I think we often, well, I know that in the past, the solution to a leader who really wanted development because they really felt that they needed support, the solution was to send them on training or to send them away and do some training, do a course in something.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether a better approach for organizations is to allow people to learn in place, in their job, but supported. And so that's what the accidental change manager is supposed to do. It's sort of, we're not taking you we're not sending you to university for a week to learn about a thing. We're actually meeting with you regularly as a group, so you'll have peers to support you. And then you come in for a couple of hours and we talk about a thing. We talk about how we're going to practice it. We practice it, and then we send you away to try it out with your team. And then you come back and we talk to you again. And I think that one, it allows higher levels of transfer of training. So the training and the learning, I guess, is going to last a lot longer. It's going to be applicable straight away. And then we also develop a support network. One of the things we've learned is that developing support networks of leaders in organizations is one of the best ways to support their growth. So if they've got peers to talk to, they've got strong lateral relationships or strong social capital across the organisation, that means that they've got those positive relationships across the organisation that they can draw from. You're also then, bonus, increasing the likelihood they'll collaborate on something in the future as well.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's a great model, and I can really see, the value in it. It's tremendous. Okay, let's shift the conversation. And are you in a rush to get off, Meg? Because I've got a couple of cool things to chat to you.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. All right, well, we can gas bag away. Talk to us all things circus.
Yes. Well, how long have you got, Richard?
Well, I've got enough time because I
to hear about circus.
Yeah, I'd love to. As a Cirque du Soleil, and I'm a regular attendee and not a patron, but kind of a bit of a patron of Circa. Do you know Circa?
Very much so, yes.
I'm recruited for their board and for their executive team, and I love it, and I look at these performers with absolute admiration. Yeah, and you're in the thick of it.
Yes. So I started Circus Ipswich. I'm the founder of this little not-for-profit circus school that I started in 2017. The reason I started it was because I had been a student at Circa at their training centre, and then I went to Volcana as part of their training centre and as a very amateur circus performer. And I got really interested in this field of social circus, where we take circus skills and we use them to build community. So we use them to help people, one, have fun, particularly young people, to take risks that are safe, to understand what it is to belong, to work as a team. So all of those sorts of things were what motivated me to start Circus Ipswich, because I realised that Ipswich was the perfect place to develop this. I live in Ipswich. I work, my office is based in Ipswich. I'm committed to Ipswich, and I went to school in Ipswich. So I really, really felt like it was a really good place to start a school, because people don't travel to Brisbane for these sorts of things. Well, some people do, but the people who really needed it, I felt like we had a really good chance to build a really great community of performing arts in Ipswich. And Ipswich is a really arty kind of place, but it really focuses heavily on traditional art forms like visual arts and ballet and all of those sorts of traditional things like music and Eisteddfods and choral choirs and all those and that kind of stuff. I felt like there was a really strong place for a performing arts like circus. So circus arts, bringing the magic of that to Ipswich has been a 9-year passion. We turn 10 next year. And I started the school with 8 kids. And I was...
Have you been a performer previously?
Only amateur.
Right.
And so working with Volcana as part of so when they would do big community performances, I would be involved in those.
Okay.
But I did train for a good 4 or 5 years myself, learning circus skills and really just getting the benefits of the community, the circus community.
Right. And so 9 years ago, you started this project.
I did.
A bunch of young students.
That's right, yes. And I didn't know how to run a not-for-profit organisation. I didn't know how to run I didn't know about running community groups. I didn't know very much at all, really. And I started Circus Ipswich at the Ipswich Showgrounds. I rented a space and, basically invited young people to come and do circus workshops with me.
Right.
And we now have about 63 enrollments, which is roughly 50 families involved, 50 kids involved. And obviously they do more than one class, but yeah.
And what's your aspiration?
My aspiration is for Circus Ipswich to live beyond me. It is also to be seen as a credible art form. So circus in Ipswich is, you're choosing between whether you send your kids to soccer, football, rugby, ballet, music lessons, or circus. Circus is up there with all of those choices. That's my aspiration.
Do you think it isn't currently?
No.
Why do you
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I mean, at the end of the day, as a parent, so I've got my kids are a bit older now, 18 and 14. You want your child to do something they're passionate about, whether that's playing a sport. If they play soccer, you have no expectation or that they're going to win the Socceroos, although good on the Socceroos for winning, their first game in the World Cup today. Or doing ballet, you have no aspiration that they will be, performing, at QPAC. So why not have them do circus?
I think people just don't know that it's an option. And as much as we have been fighting the good fight to help people understand that, I think I think it's probably still seen as that's for other people, that's not for us.
Right.
And my mission is that people will see that circus is for everyone and it doesn't matter what.
Carnies.
Hey, what was that?
They think it's for the carnies.
They think it's for they think it's for, I don't know. I don't know that they know what to expect.
Yeah, right.
So I'm trying to combat that by this year we hold the inaugural Ipswich Circus Festival.
Right.
We also, and we've also got our first lot of operational funding from Arts Queensland. So we've got a regional core funding grant from Arts Queensland, and that gives us enough funding so it's designed to recruit next level artistic direction skills and also an operations manager. So as well as do some more marketing. So we've got funding to be able for me to step away from the artistic direction. I currently play the role of creative and artistic director, both on the board but also with the kids as well.
Yeah.
And I think the kids need someone who can take them to the next level of artistry. So my performance troupe is incredibly skilled. Many of them have been with me for many, many years. And now we're ready to just make their art something really powerful. And not that it isn't currently. And I think I've learned a lot about artistic direction and we put on a really good show. But I would just love the young people that work with me to get exposure to someone else who, not every performance can be in Meg's vision. It has to be, so I will stay on the board as sort of strategic creative director, and that the creative direction of the organisation in terms of strategy. But I really want someone who can help me take the kids on a journey to the next level of artistry. And an inclusive journey, because our performance program is an inclusive performance program. We have young people from our umbrella circus program, which is young people who have higher support needs. We also have our highly skilled acrobats and our highly skilled aerialists and everywhere in between. So I have to work with 14 young people on a range of skills, range of ages, range of abilities. And the whole point is that we make it work and we make a great show that people will come and pay to see, and we work as a team. So that's the strategic layer. And then I think what this funding will do is allow us to engage someone who can take that troop and go, you know what would be great? Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way.
Wow, that sounds awesome. Okay, so to finalise this conversation with me, I want to take this in a bit of a fun direction. And,
excellent.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I am from the circus after all.
We might delete this from the original. I wanted to talk about something that I find hilarious. So before we started, right, I was sitting here in my carty, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm an old man. And you go, oh, yeah, you're an old man, and, you know, you've got your...
I don't actually think I said that, did I?
You've got your old amps and your old guitar behind you, and there are you. I'm 58. I won't ask how old you are because that'd be very rude. My mum brought me up proper. You know, and you're sitting in front of your painting that you did, you know, at a sip and paint or whatever you... Right?
Yes, correct. And, yes, I did.
Right. Are we just stereotypes?
I don't know. We might. Well, I don't know. Are we like? I feel like maybe we are. Maybe there's just a point in life where you become. I don't know. Well, look.
You're that old dude with his Gibson Les Paul trying to be a rock star. And I'm doing my Eat, Pray, Love, and I'm painting pictures while I'm drinking.
No, I'm the least Eat, Pray, Love person you can possibly. Let's just say I have been an artist since I was quite young, but I'm not, I'm not anywhere.
Right.
This was just a team building activity.
Yeah.
We just happened to have a really great friend who's an artist who told us what to paint, and I was there for the wine anyway, so.
And I'm a musician from back in the day. I've got 2 albums on Spotify, but it is funny, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, it's like as we get older, certainly, you just kind of settle into these kind of, positions. It probably comes back to your accidental change manager. It's like you kind of just, there's a space that you just kind of flow into, and like you go, okay, I'm here now.
Yeah. I think there is. I think that's actually helpful because life would be exhausting otherwise. Like just like constantly trying to find my place in the world, and maybe we've started to establish a sense at this ripe old age. We've started to establish a sense of identity that feels comfortable on us.
I know you're nowhere near as old as me, but. I mean, it's the same thing with AI. Like, I'm busily learning. I've engaged this guy to coach me how to incorporate AI into my business. And there's a part of me that goes, fucking hell, dude, I'm 58 years old. Why do I need to be learning about this shit? I need to be starting to think about going on cruise liners and, tending to my garden. Growing more garden.
It's like you don't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be or. It can be and,
I know, Meg. I know. That's why you're the voice of reason. You're the voice of reason in my life.
I personally find the AI journey fascinating, and I think it's just incredible what it can do and what I'm able to offload my mind from. And then there's other things that it's really crappy at and I still prefer to do. So I'm like, you're not very good at that, are you? So look, horses for courses. I think, obviously there's bigger stuff above all of that, but just at a personal level, I think there's still a place for everyone. Just got to find it.
Look, last night I was literally swearing at ChatGPT because I was trying to program a guitar. I've gone back to uni. I'm doing a Bachelor of Music, majoring in...
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. You are so not a stereotype, Richard. Going back to uni and doing a Bachelor of Music.
Hard to get into society. I'm hanging out with 18-year-olds and playing music. So
that's awesome.
I programmed this piece of equipment, and ChatGPT kept giving me the wrong information. I was going, you keep telling me the wrong thing. And it would go, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, I've told you the wrong thing, and it would tell me the wrong thing again. And so yeah, I think it's a trap to think that it is going to solve all of your problems, but it's a beautiful resource, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Well, Dr. Meg Hooper, almost said
Richard
Cooper.
Triggs, yes.
I shouldn't have said Cooper. It's Hooper.
It's Hooper. That's right.
Dr. Meg Hooper. It's lovely to reacquaint ourselves.
It is. It was really fun. Thanks for having me.
You know what would be fun? If we did a regular segment.
Yes.
Talking about, specific, because we're in the same space, really.
Yeah.
We're in the org psych space. I'm in the recruitment space, where we, explore perhaps a real world example.
Yeah.
What's going on in organisations and, in relation to an individual or a team or a culture, and really unpack it, because I think people would find that really interesting.
Yeah, I've been doing these side quests on LinkedIn. So it's a little bit of work, but I research a topic that's a little bit of a side quest that's related to my field. So the one I did last week was about Australia's in 1945. John Curtin had that white paper, full employment white paper, and I was drawing the relationship between full employment and what that meant, what the experience of being in an organisation was, and then what happened, why it disappeared, and then what it's like now. And what we see now is the government now intervening again, but this time is from a health lens to say, well, removing full employment created a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, discomfort in people's work lives. And we start to see mentions of things like, I think the late 70s is the first time we start to see workplace stress in corporate sense mentioned as a thing. And then now we've got the government intervening again and saying, actually, in this uncertain environment, it's actually your job to keep people psychologically safe. Like, people need to feel psychologically healthy, and we're going to fine you if you don't do that. So it's really interesting. Well, anyway, so I got a lot of good feedback from that. And I've done quite a few of them now. I try to do them weekly. I don't always get them done, but there's always a topic, there's always an angle you can find to talk about these things that people find interesting.
Sure. And especially, the encouragement to younger people to join, to commit, to be retained, to be rewarded. The exiting of, the older people, the reality that, it's not the young people who don't want to come into the office, it's the middle-aged, person who wants to be at home to walk their dog and take their kids. All of that stuff is just...
Challenge all the assumptions and the mythology.
Absolutely. It's just, for somebody trying to run a business and be successful, and of course the adoption of AI and what does that mean for... the workforce and so on. I think there's some really good stuff we could unpack there.
Let's do it. I'd love to.
All right.
We should. Well, let's do it. You're on. I'm signed up.
We're going to create the Hoops and Triggsy podcast.
You could even find some. Yeah, sounds good. And then you could have some of your other guests come on, and we can interrogate them together.
I love it. It's on. All right. Well.
All right.
Dr. Meg Hooper.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
See ya.
Take care. Bye.